with demand expected to come back, the question remains, does this mean the economy is back on track?
Companies now, after experimenting with offshore in places like India, Philippines, and Poland, want to bring those jobs back.
We invest in the U.S. We're the biggest exporter in the country. In the cycle we're in right now, we're creating jobs.
From Radio America, it's Neil Asbury's Made in America, the show that explores American industry, large and small, and promotes American-made products everywhere. Put Neil Asbury's Made in America to work for you.
A very big welcome to you today. I'm your host, Neil Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Ruffman. So, Rich, it's going on. It's still going on. We've been talking about this a lot. The whole argument of socialism versus capitalism. It's amazing how this. I think the next election is really in those terms. I mean, they're saying, "Hey, Joe Biden, he's this centrist dude. He is so far to the left. He's going to be pulled much further to the left, and he is going to have to embrace socialism in its rawest, most dangerous form if he's ever going to get the nomination." And then we're setting up this massive struggle between these two ideologies. And could you believe that it's happening in America? Oh, my goodness, Rich. Unbelievable.
Yeah, no, this is just so outrageous right now. And, yeah, it has become a battle that people are trying to understand the difference between capitalism and socialism. Very, very strange environment that we live in right now. But hopefully we'll ultimately get this right. We got a wonderful show today.
We have someone coming on here just in a moment who's going to talk about how capitalism is the crucial protector of the smallest minorities. I mean, an amazing thing when you think about it. She's absolutely right. But that's going to be in a moment. We're also going to talk about infrastructure from someone from the American Trucking Institute and how important rebuilding our infrastructure is. But talking about the epic battle between capitalism and socialism, Rich, the thing that's standing in its way is the Electoral College, and even the Electoral College is under attack. And they're trying to, they're not going to change the Constitution and get rid of the Electoral College. They're trying to do it in other ways. I mean, the Electoral College is the foundation of this country. And without it, we would take this massive turn to the left. We would be embracing socialism across our great country, and it would be destroying us from within. We can't allow that to happen. The Electoral College must stand and do what it was supposed to do, what our original founders intended it to do, keeping us all together. Despite where you live in this country, you have a voice. That is what America was founded on. We all have a voice, no matter how big or how small. We're very pleased to have on the show Trent England, president of Save Our States, a group that was formed to save the Electoral College. And I got to tell you, it is extremely important that we pay attention to this. Trent, welcome to Made in America.
Yeah, thank you so much, Neil.
I got to tell you, in those terms, I really believe without the Electoral College, our country becomes something totally radically, it falls off the cliff. So how much pressure is the Electoral College under? Can they actually pull this off around the Constitution and essentially end the Electoral College because states with 270 electoral votes pledged to give all of their votes to the popular winner, despite if a state would have gone with, say, the challenger, or in this case, the actual winner of the Electoral College. The one who should have won doesn't win because they pledged their votes to the popular vote winner. So tell us about this, Trent. What's going on?
I mean, this is called the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, and it is a real threat to the Electoral College. You're absolutely right. And a lot of people don't realize this. I've been working on this for 10 years, and over I get people saying, oh, well, we don't have to worry about this because they'd have to change the Constitution, and that's really hard to do. And the fact is, the people who, for years and decades, have been trying to get rid of the Electoral College by changing the Constitution have come up with a new strategy, and it's exactly as you describe it. They're getting states to pledge to and to change their state laws to ignore how the people in their own states vote and instead to give away all of their electoral votes to the candidate that wins the raw national vote total. And, I mean, this, if you think that through, it really, if courts uphold that and enough states do it, and it has a trigger, it only takes effect if states worth 270 electoral votes actually adopt it, but they are almost to 200. So this is not, we're not talking about, just Vermont and Massachusetts. I mean, it's California, it's New York, it's Illinois. There are a whole bunch of states on the left that are trying to do this, and they're lobbying really, really hard in conservative states, trying to persuade people that somehow, and I mean, this is really just sort of preposterous and also not a good reason to change the rules anyway, but trying to argue that somehow this might help Republicans, which, I mean, again, it's kind of silly, but we've seen that argument actually persuade some state legislators, and my job is to go out and win it back, and we have done that quite well so far. But it's a real threat. There's a real chance that they could basically hijack the Electoral College, probably not before 2020, but certainly before 2024, unless people really focus on this and stop this.
Well, what I find interesting in this whole scenario, when the progressives get out there and they're saying, well, this is very, very unfair because if we don't correct the Electoral College, we're going to have voter suppression. That's the word that comes out. Voter suppression. Right out of Dr. Zhivago. Voter suppression. And so we're going to convince those who are uninformed about the Constitution and understand why the Founding Fathers had the Electoral College, that the fact that you would have the popular vote is, in fact, voter suppression. So you always got to look at what people are saying on the left, the far left, because what they accuse you of is probably what they're doing. But the irony of it is that an uninformed electorate will believe what they're saying because it sounds so good, doesn't it? It's for the greater good. And that's what they always say.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds really simple. We're just going to throw all the votes in one big pot, and whoever has the most votes, that party's going to win, that candidate's going to win. And they forget that, this is actually, most of the countries that we consider democratic around the rest of the world don't use a system like that. They use either a parliamentary system, which is similar to our Electoral College, or like in India, they actually have an Electoral College system, and they're just going through an election process right now over there. Because of the reason why the founders gave us this system, it guarantees a certain kind of balance across the country. It forces political parties that want to be national to actually be national. They actually have to have a presence across the country. And without that, you wind up with regional politics, and you wind up with candidates winning with really small pluralities. And, the countries that do have a direct election of their presidents, like France and Russia, have suffered from exactly that, where you have these winners who actually only had the support of like 23-24% of the population. But in a direct election system, it's easy for candidates to win with these small and sometimes very regional radical pluralities. It's really, really dangerous.
Hey, Trent, out of the 190 electoral votes that they have signed up for this crazy thing, has there been any red states that is part of the 190, or is this the sort of hard-clad base Democrat support? I mean, are any purple states in this 190?
So the closest thing to a purple state that has adopted national popular vote is Colorado just this year, but Colorado has been taken over by the far left. So even though the state, is not that far into the blue, Democrats control the House, the Senate, and the governor's office there, and it was Democrats who pushed it through. Actually, all the Republicans and a few of the Democrats voted against it, but that was not enough to stop this partisan push. All the other states are solid Democrat states, like I mentioned. I mean, California, Washington State, Hawaii, Illinois, New York, Vermont, Massachusetts. It's been states like that are doing this. But I'll tell you, most of the lobbying effort from this national popular vote group is actually focused in red states, and they're pushing. I was just talking with a friend in Idaho. They've been pushing that plan in Idaho. They tried to push it here in Oklahoma, where I am, but they couldn't even get a bill sponsored here, which was great. But they've been lobbying hard in Georgia and South Carolina and Arizona. I mean, all around the country trying to pick off basically a red state so that then they can turn around and say, oh, all of a sudden this is bipartisan, which is, I mean, again, it just is silly, but sometimes state legislators don't really quite realize what's going on here.
Well, you know what? The legislators don't realize we're not a democracy. We're a republic. And by the way, if you had the popular vote, that's exactly what you would have in, I don't know, places like Venezuela, Libya. That's called mob rule. That's mob rule. We don't have mob rule. And the Electoral College actually provides the structure for an orderly transition of power. That's the whole point, which gives everybody an equal opportunity to vote because it protects the Vermonts of the world versus the Californias.
Yeah, and it...
go ahead, Trent. Very quickly, we've got about 15 seconds, but I'd like to continue this on into the next segment if you're available.
Yeah, sure thing.
Okay, well, let's take a quick break. I mean, this is a very, very important topic. I mean, we got to get right back to it. And why was the Electoral College founded in the first place? And is it still relevant today? Or has things really changed to where maybe we should go to the popular vote? You don't want to miss it. We're going to be right back with Trent England, president of Save Our States.
Made in America.
Welcome to Made in America. I'm your host, Neal Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rothman, and we're having a very, very important and enlightening conversation about our Electoral College, the essence of our country, with Trent England, president of Save Our States. Well, Trent, here it is. I mean, back when our country was founded, you had these 13 colonies that came together, right? And it was very, very tentative in the beginning. There was suspicion, from one colony to the next. You had big colonies and powerful colonies like Virginia, and you had small colonies in remote colonies like Maine, and you had Delaware and as Rich said, Vermont, right? And they were all suspicious of the larger colonies that would railroad them. Everything would occur there, and whatever happened to Virginia, it would just automatically roll out. Nobody else would have a voice. So why would a delegation from Delaware or Rhode Island or Vermont actually join this union if they felt that their voice would not be heard? That's why they joined. I mean, they would not have joined. I mean, you can't do a do-over. We're hearing about do-overs. You can't do a do-over. That's why they joined in the first place. That was the reason that we came together as a nation. So the small people, the smaller colonies would continue to have a voice, and the bigger colonies just couldn't get their way, and all legislation and all deals and everything would occur in Virginia, and everybody else just had to follow along. Nobody would have agreed to that, and that's why we have the Electoral College. So, Trent, isn't that just as relative today as it was back then?
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely is. People have this really incorrect belief that, and I hear it all the time, that, well, the Electoral College, I mean, that was fine for the horse and buggy era, but today we can communicate so easily and all this. No, it wasn't about that. I mean, it really just literally wasn't. That was not the concern of the founders. The concern of the founders was exactly what you said. I mean, we have really big states, really small states. We have really big cities. We have lots of small towns and rural areas. And how do you balance all that out so you don't wind up with the tyranny of the majority? And this is, James Madison's most famous writing ever is probably Federalist 10, the 10th essay of the Federalist Papers. And it's all about how the Constitution prevents majorities from doing things, right? How it protects minority rights. And, as you say, the small state never would have joined this union if it had been just, basically, as you say, mob ruled, kind of more direct democracy, because that would mean that state interests, small state interests, would be ignored over and over and over again, because, it's not just that they have smaller populations, it's that people are spread out. Farmers don't have nearly the amount of time as somebody, or access as somebody living in a city, to the levers of political power. There's a lot of practicalities here that people just forget. And, it's the same today. I mean, Oklahoma, about a third of our population lives outside of what we consider to be big cities. And what we consider to be big cities would not even be, not even be a quarter of a borough in New York. So yeah, the reasons the founders had for creating the Electoral College are perfectly relevant today. They serve us very well today. They served us really well over our history. And actually, when you look at what the founders thought and what the Electoral College has actually done over American history, it's actually worked even better than they thought it would, which I think is pretty exciting.
Well, you have to marvel at the foresight and the understanding of developing country from our forefathers. The fact that they could understand this in the 18th century and understand that, we have to protect a scenario that could exist, and that is mob rule or the tyranny of the vote. And I do find it that they were actually looking out for the minorities. What is ironic about all of this is that the Democrats, or the progressives, I should say, are saying that they're concerned about the minority, hence we have to have one vote for everybody, every vote counts, is really showing how they don't care about the individual votes and only care for the power that they accumulate as a result of all those votes, with the individual being left to the side. That's the ultimate irony.
Well, Rich, I mean, you said it right. I mean, they're only looking at an advantage, a political advantage. I mean, they think they have an advantage here, and they want that advantage. That's the only thing that they care about. Let's be real. I mean, that's it. But, Trent, we got a little bit of time. I got to ask you this question, though. Let's just say they did get, by some miracle, to 270. I mean, God forbid if that were to happen, it would be a dark, dark day in our country. But would it stand? I mean, in the courts, I mean, would that mean like a game over? Boom, match point, finished. Hey, now it's a done deal? Or, I mean, what would happen next?
Well, I think there is a question whether it's actually legal. Because we know that it violates the founders' original intent. The trouble is, the founders gave flexibility to the states. That's a good thing. They did it so that states could figure out how best to represent their state, not so that they could, ignore their own state presidential elections.
Well, Trent, we're going to have to get you back because we got to leave it right there. This is a fascinating topic. We're going to get you back. We got to finish this. Well, we're not going to finish it. This is going to go on, but we very, very important for all our listeners out there. Trent England, president of Save Our States, a group that was organized to save the Electoral College. Trent, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Hey, coming up, we got Marsha Enright, head of the Reason Individualism Freedom Institute. Boy, that's a mouthful, but very, very fascinating. She's written a piece in Real Clear Markets. Capitalism is the crucial protector of the smallest minority. Very, very important piece. We're going to talk about it just a moment from now.
Made in America.
Sharply higher at the open, stocks continued to perform well over the course of the day Tuesday.
And I think that bodes well here over the next couple of years for having bigger demands coming to this country.
Now, more of Neal Asbury's Made in America.
Welcome to Made in America. I'm your host, Neal Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Ruffman. So, Rich, I mean, protecting the smallest amongst us, the weakest, the ones that don't have a voice, the minorities. I mean, it's all over the place today. Who is the protector of minorities? The little guy, the one who cannot defend himself. And we talk about the Electoral College. You got the progressives, or should we say the regressives, who are out there to try to destroy the Electoral College. I mean, it was meant to protect the rural states. Those where there were not lots of people, but they had their own individualism. And they were there because they loved their communities. And they joined this union because they felt that they would be protected because the larger cities and the bigger states like New York and Massachusetts and Virginia could not take advantage of the minority, of the smaller states. So now we have a movement in this country to destroy that. And then you have a movement in this country who wants to replace capitalism, something that has worked so well, but let's not call it capitalism, let's call it economic freedom. To replace economic freedom with chains of socialism that would snuff the life out of you if ever they had a chance to make us all be beholden to this concept, to this God of theirs, the God of socialism that so many people are bowing down to today. And they say it's to protect the minority. But our next guest says, no, that is not right. Marsha Enright, head of the Reason Individualism Freedom Institute, published a piece in Real Clear Markets that says just the opposite. Capitalism is the crucial protector of the smallest minority. And she's here with us right now. Marsha, welcome to Made in America. So, Marsha, I mean, we're very passionate about this topic. Yes, we got to protect the minority. And what is the best way to do that? Is it to give them hope and opportunity so they can create a life that they can feel proud about and take care of themselves and their family and their communities? Help make this country stronger. Or do we just all throw in together and not have any incentive whatsoever to do anything in life but expect the government to take care of us? I mean, what America do we want? But you say that capitalism, which is, on the mainstream media right now, this is not the narrative that you hear, is actually the protector of the minorities. Explain to us.
Minority is the individual. And capitalism is a system in which you are free to follow your own ideas and your own way of taking care of yourself. So that's how it's the protector of the minorities. Our minorities today, one of the biggest problems is that there are so many regulations and overseeing from the state that they don't have the same kind of economic freedom that we did, say, in the 19th century.
Well, what's amazing is that I think we have to explain how we got to this point. You're 100% correct. Capitalism has created more wealth than any economic system since the dawn of man. Capitalism has protected us from an aristocratic concept that they had in the European nations, and one of the reasons why, all those crazy people came over here. Back in the 16, 17, 1800, they took the shot. They took a risk. They didn't have a GPS, by the way. They didn't even go to kindergarten. But they came here because they believed that they could have a better life. The capitalism provided that better life. But why is it then? Why are we having this conversation? Why is it that Pew comes out with a poll this week that says 37% of those polls say, well, we think capitalism's not a bad idea? Is that because the folks out there are not being taught the reality of economic systems and the dark side of capitalism, that black book discussion of how many millions of people have died as a result of a socialism?
Well, yeah, not only are the young not being taught that, but they're also being taught that the most important thing is not to take care of yourself and your family, but to live for other people. So what does that lead to? If you get the most moral credit because you take care of other people, what are you going to want as a system? You're going to want one in which you get a chance to take care of other people, and other people can't take care of themselves. So this is one of the big problems with capitalism, is that it's a system in which everybody can take care of themselves.
So you don't need a big government.
Exactly. You want
small
government.
So you think that those who are promoting socialism, like AOC and all of that, and Bernie, and it's some diverse folks in our country. I'm sure that they mean good, but they're barking up the wrong tree here. But are they doing it because they believe that this is political power to them, that by having everybody depending on their handouts and whatever they're so kind to be able to, what crumbs they're willing to dust off the table, that the masses should be happy with that, and that this is the way to power because that's the only thing that they're going to have, whatever we give them?
I think so, and you can see it you can even see it in the way Ocasio-Cortez talks, where she just delights in asserting her moral superiority because she's all about how we should be taking care of everybody.
You know, this whole concept of the greater good, which is what the progressives always fall into and talk about. I mean, this goes back to the whole concept of the rules for radicals. And if you understand you have to break down the systems, you don't teach it in the schools. You espouse in the schools how everything we do in this country is negative and not good. And we all have to take care of one another. And it's our right, to have someone take care of me. It's my right to have the government give me health care. It's my right to have the government give me a guaranteed income. And it goes on and on and on and on. What's interestingly ironic is that they don't look at Venezuela and Cuba and Russia and all these other countries that have had a reactionary government and say, I get it. I understand. There's something radically wrong. Why are the people in Cuba swimming in the Florida Straits to get here? Well, maybe there's something wrong with socialism. They don't get it. So it worries me that they're not getting the word out.
Well, this is the reason why I'm saying that there's another motive than actual care for other people, because they ignore all of the deaths. I mean, the millions of deaths. The Black Book of Communism tallied up 60 million, but many people think it's even 100 million under communism and socialism. They ignore that. They keep saying, no, that's not real socialism. Well, how come capitalism, even in its crippled forms, helps people live better, but socialism in even a little form starts inroads onto how well you can live?
Well, what's interesting. Go ahead, Neal. Then I have a comment. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that. So, because they ignore the people who should know better, ignore all of these deaths and all this destruction. You have to ask yourself, why are they still motivated to push this system? And that's why I'm saying that it's because they believe that to get the best moral credit, they should be helping other people. And I'm not talking about, helping other people in a benevolent way. They think helping other people has to be their primary goal in life, not actually figuring out how to produce something and take care of themselves. Because, of course, they always want to take money from everybody else to help other people. I mean, it makes me think of there was a group that I saw on TV a few years ago, Millionaires for Increasing Taxes or something. They want to be taxed. I don't know. I don't remember the name of it. And I thought to myself, why don't they just send the money in? Well,
like Tom Steyer. Like Tom Steyer. Oh, sure.
Like
go ahead
Warren
and send
Buffett.
it, Tommy. Warren Buffett. Yeah.
Sure. Just send the money in. If you, why do you have to try to rope everybody else into it? Well, they want the moral credit.
Well, they think there's a box. There's a box you can tick off there that says you want to send more money, right, on your IRS form. So, hey, but Marsha, we're gonna be right back. Stick around. We got Marsha Enright, head of the Reason Individualism and Freedom Institute. She's with us. We're talking about capitalism and socialism and what truly protects the smallest and the weakest amongst us. You don't want to miss it.
Made in America.
Welcome to Made in America. I'm your host, Neal Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rothman, and we're together with Marsha Enright, head of the Reason Individualism Freedom Institute. Marsha, thanks for sticking around with us. I mean, we're talking about capitalism versus socialism and who protects the smallest amongst us, the weakest amongst us, those who don't have a voice, the minority. Who is truly the protector of the minority? Is it economic freedom and giving them the ability to go out and create things for themselves? Or is it a government that just is standing there just with a handout so you don't have to think or do anything? And obviously, nobody's creating anything. There's no wealth created. There's no prosperity. So eventually, the government just runs out of stuff to give away. But yet, we should all be happy and thankful for whatever crumbs they could give us, because no more crumbs are being made. So, Marsha, amazing thing that we have to talk about that, and that there's actually those and very, very powerful political people and forces in our country. I don't know if Joe Biden is going to be able to get through the Democrat primary without becoming a true, believing, card-carrying member of the Socialist Party of America? Can a Democrat get through the gauntlet without embracing socialism and really, really, really being able to deliver that message? And, wow, Joe Biden. I mean, not even Barack Obama today could not even his policies are left enough. Unbelievable that we have to have this conversation in such a great country that's prospered so much because of our economic freedom.
Well, Neal, you're talking about Joe Biden, and Joe Biden comes out there, as did, all those other Democrats who were in Trump states that Trump won, and then in the last election they took it back from the Republicans and then went Democrat. They all lied. Every one of them lied and said we're moderate Democrats. We're not going for impeachment. We're looking out for the average person. We wanted to be in the center of the road. MOR, not happening. Never going to happen. And it's a disaster that these people are functioning that way. Just a disaster, Neal.
So, Marsha, what comes next?
To what you said earlier in the program about the problem with our education system, because the young kids are getting fed so many bad ideas. And, that's one of the things that I work on. I have programs in which I'm trying to help kids learn the whole range of ideas instead of just the slim amount from a Howard Zinn book or the latest leftist rag, But it's happening throughout the system, starting in grade school. And I think we have to really be vigilant about this, about getting better ideas into the schools.
Well, you're 100% correct. Yeah, let me address that. You're 100% correct. And one of the things we have to look at, and I don't know how to reverse this right now, and I used to teach college. But the point is that we have the largest plurality of professors in college are leftists. They're far to the left. My son went to a major school here and a major school in Chicago. And if he spoke up and said, "Wait a minute, that's not the way it is," then he would have been in trouble. And he would have dropped his grade. So I don't know how we get out of this. We have the media, entertainment is in the game. We have the mainstream media on television is in the game. The news reporting is in the game, and then you have the politicians in the game. And you know what I think? And Obama's in the game. It's just how do we get in the game and try and reverse this capitalist versus socialist argument?
Well, I think that people are voting with their pocketbooks right now. That they're seeing that college has gotten to the point where it's not very valuable and is not as valuable as they thought it was. And they're questioning about whether they should spend the thousands and thousands of dollars on the inflated tuition caused by government loans.
Hey, Marsha, thanks for being on the show. This is a topic that we'll be tracking and following, and certainly going into the next election. Going to be a whole lot of debate going on in this country. We really appreciate your voice and what you're doing and the writing that you're doing. Keep it up. Your latest piece in Real Clear Markets, Capitalism is the crucial protector of the smallest minority. Marsha Enright, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you. Appreciate your show, too. Thank you very much.
Coming up, Dr. Rothman and I are going to have some final thoughts for the day.
Made in America.
Welcome to Made in America. I'm your host, Neal Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rothman. So, Rich, a very, very passionate discussion about economic freedom and the power of the individual to change the world. Hey, look, since our country was founded, we talked about the Electoral College and how important that was to protect the minority, right? And how well minorities have done in our country over the years. Yes, we're not a perfect country, but so many people, the whole middle class, the middle class never existed before America. The promise of the Renaissance, this incredible thirst for knowledge and reaching out into the world, and all these thoughts in the arts and the sciences, how we should govern ourselves. America is the fulfillment of the Renaissance. What was the Renaissance about? It was about freedom on all different levels. Freedom to pursue freedom to pursue your economic agenda in your own way, not in someone else's way, but in your own way. And guess what? The middle class, the prosperity, like nothing in this world has ever seen before, was created because of unleashing the American spirit, the freedom. You know, capitalism has got this sort of connotation. Oh, capitalism, it's bad. And you think about these packing houses in Chicago in the 1920s and all of these sweatshops in New York City, in the garment district. And that's not capitalism. Capitalism is at the kitchen table, Rich. It's at the kitchen table when we all come together and we talk about our dreams, our economic dreams, in a free way with our families and say, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to start that business. Does anybody got $1,000? Does anybody got some money that I, just a little bit? Believe me, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to follow my dreams and my passion. I'm going to be successful because I'm free. I'm free to do that. And my goodness, Rich, what we unleashed on the world, the positive force, while other countries were mirrored with their socialism and their communism, we were free to pursue our economic dreams. And as they say, the rest is history.
Well, that was very nice. I mean, that was a great diatribe. First of all, I think Phil has to be putting some music to that.
I see that there's tears coming down your face.
Yeah. I think Phil should put some music to that, and fife and drum, and I'm looking at Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Hey, listen, here's something to consider, that capitalism actually gave rise to all the people coming here. That's the point. The immigrants came here. They came here with nothing. Why? Because they had the dream to be something. They left the shores.
The dream
that were,
to be free.
They left what was not working to come here for what would work, and at least give them the opportunity to be successful. Listen, my father's family came here. My dad came here in 1905 as a child. No. He came here in 1915, just before the Russian Revolution. And his brothers and sisters, they had nothing. They had money in Russia, came here with nothing. Every one of them, and they didn't speak the language, by the way, every one of them, they did it on their own. They all lived together. They worked part-time. They struggled, and they all succeeded. And by the way, they took care of my grandmother and my grandfather. So the idea that capitalism, can free us, it's 100% correct. So what can I say? Capitalism works, socialism kills. That's what it really comes down to.
Yeah, and I wanted to get to this, but I mean, just very, very quickly, I just got to touch on this. We talk about the far left and the mob rule and what's going on in the real leftist enclaves of America. But look what's going on in San Francisco right now. Even progressives in the left are looking at this homelessness and the drugs. And now we see the same thing in Seattle, this great city, this great liberal stronghold of homelessness and drugs in this whole sort of culture that's being built in these cities, these liberal cities. Is unbelievable here in America that we have to see that in such prosperous, rich places with all of this happening. People still are not able to take care of themselves because the communities are not coming together to create opportunity for everybody. The smallest amongst us. We talk about how capitalism is supposed to take care of the smallest amongst us. Rich, unfortunately, we're out of time. But economic freedom, man, that's it. That's what we're all about here at Made in America. We're going to be back next week at the same time for another adventure. And never forget, we will never stop fighting for your jobs and opportunity and your economic freedom to go and create something very special for yourselves, your family, and your country.